Good evening. We don't know who they are, but we know what they have done. Two boys who are just 12 years of age have been convicted of murdering a stranger in a park with a machete. Too young to be named, the pair are now the youngest convicted killers since the murder of the toddler James Bulger 30 years ago. One of them sent a message after the stabbing saying, "It is what it is," signing off with IDRC text speak for "I don't really care."
November 13, 2023. Stowlawn Playing Fields, Wolverhampton, England. A 19-year-old sits on a bench with his friend, enjoying an autumn evening. Two children approach, just 12 years old, barely out of primary school. Within minutes, one of them will plunge a machete 23 centimeters deep into the teenager's body, nearly cutting him in half. The victim, Shawn Seesahai, who'd only been in the UK 6 months for medical treatment. The killers, two boys who would become Britain's youngest murderers since the James Bulger case 3 decades earlier. This is the story of the Shawn Seesahai murder. Wolverhampton, West Midlands. A city of 260,000 people struggling with post-industrial decline, poverty, and rising youth violence. The Stowlawn Playing Fields, a patch of green space meant for children's recreation, football matches, community gatherings. On this November evening, it would become the scene of one of Britain's most shocking murders. The case would force the nation to confront an uncomfortable truth. Children barely into their teens were carrying machetes and willing to use them for no reason at all. No gang dispute. No robbery, no personal grievance, just a random, senseless act of extreme violence by two boys who should have been playing video games or doing homework. When police arrested the killers the next day, investigators were stunned. These weren't hardened teenage gang members. They were 12-year-olds, one from a troubled background, one from a loving family. Together, they had committed murder with a brutality that shocked even veteran detectives. The case would reignite debates about youth violence, knife crime, and how children so young could commit such evil. Shawn Seesahai was born in 2004 on the Caribbean island of Anguilla, a British territory known for pristine beaches and close-knit communities. At 19, he was a young man with dreams and ambitions. He loved basketball and cricket. He worked weekends with his father, always saving his earnings. His mother described him as loving, well-mannered, and protective of his family. Shawn had come to the UK in May 2023 for a specific reason: eye surgery after an injury sustained playing basketball. It was supposed to be temporary. Get the medical treatment, recover, then return home to pursue his dream of becoming an engineer. He settled in Handsworth, Birmingham, one of the city's most diverse neighborhoods, while awaiting further treatment. On November 13th, Shawn traveled the short distance to Wolverhampton to spend time with a friend. They ended up at Stowlawn, playing fields as darkness fell around 8 p.m. Shawn had no idea that two children with a machete were also in the park, looking for trouble. He'd been in the UK just 6 months, long enough to feel comfortable, not long enough to recognize the danger signs of British knife culture. The two boys who murdered Shawn Seesahai cannot be legally named. Court orders protect their identities despite their heinous crime. They're known only by initials or as Boy A and Boy B. Both were 12 years old, an age when most children are in year 7, their biggest concerns being homework and friendships. The first boy came from chaos. Social services had been involved since he was a baby. He'd experienced violence at home from early childhood. Most disturbingly, he'd been groomed, exploited, and trafficked by older criminals who used him for drug dealing and violence. The court would later describe him as a victim of modern slavery, He'd bought the machete for 40 pounds from another child, keeping it under his bed like some twisted security blanket. The second boy appeared to come from stability. He wasn't known to police or social services. He had a supportive, loving family. But he'd experienced upheaval too. Time spent in refuges, instability that perhaps made him vulnerable to the influence of his more troubled friend. Together, they formed a dangerous partnership. On November 13th, the first boy came home from school, changed out of his uniform, grabbed the machete from under his bed, and went to meet his friend. They had no specific plan, no target in mind. They were just two children with a deadly weapon, looking for excitement. The sequence of events that led to murder was tragically mundane. Shawn and his friend were sitting on a bench at Stowlawn playing fields. The two boys were nearby, having been at the baseball court. As darkness fell, the group's paths crossed. Shawn briefly left the bench to walk around. During those few minutes, the two boys sat down on it. When Shawn returned, he simply asked them to move so he and his friend could sit back down. It was a normal, polite request, the kind of minor social interaction that happens thousands of times daily in public spaces. But something in that moment triggered violence. Perhaps the boys felt disrespected. Perhaps they'd been looking for any excuse to use the machete. Perhaps there was no reason at all beyond the terrifying randomness of youth violence. What's certain is that within moments of that simple request to move, Shawn Seesahai would be dying. The friend who was with Shawn would later describe how quickly everything escalated. One moment, they were just trying to sit down. The next moment, machete blows were raining down. There was no argument, no buildup, no warning. Just sudden, explosive violence. The attack was swift and brutal. One of the boys, the prosecution could never determine which one, pulled out the 40-centimeter machete and struck. The fatal blow penetrated Shawn's back, traveling 23 centimeters through his body, piercing both lungs and his heart. The wound was so deep, it almost went completely through him. But they didn't stop there. As Shawn collapsed, they continued the assault. A second major wound was inflicted to his skull. Slash wounds covered his legs. They kicked him and punched him as he lay dying. His friend, traumatized and terrified, could only watch in horror before fleeing for help. The entire attack lasted less than a minute. Two 12-year-old boys had just committed one of the most brutal murders in recent British history. As Shawn lay dying on the cold ground, gasping his last breaths, the boys calmly picked up the machete and walked away. They showed no panic, no remorse, no recognition of what they'd just done. Emergency services arrived within minutes, but it was too late. Police officers attempted first aid, but Shawn was already dead. He died alone on foreign soil, thousands of miles from his family, killed by children for absolutely no reason. West Midlands Police immediately launched a murder investigation. Witnesses had seen two young boys fleeing the scene. CCTV cameras captured partial images. Within 24 hours, detectives had identified the suspects, shockingly young even for experienced investigators who thought they'd seen everything. The next evening, November 14th, police simultaneously raided two addresses. At the first boy's home, they found the murder weapon, the bloodied machete hidden under his bed like a guilty secret. At the second boy's home, they discovered blood-stained clothing hastily hidden. Forensic evidence would prove devastating. Shawn's blood on the blade, on their clothes, on their shoes. Both boys were arrested and said nothing in police interviews, offering no explanation, no remorse, no acknowledgement of what they'd done. They were 12 years old and already knew to give no-comment interviews. The evidence, however, spoke louder than any confession could have. The trial at Nottingham Crown Court in June 2024 presented unprecedented challenges. How do you try 12-year-olds for murder? Special accommodations were made. Breaks every hour, simplified language, support workers present. But the facts remained horrifically adult. Both boys denied murder, each blaming the other for the fatal blow. The prosecution argued it didn't matter who struck the killing blow. They acted together. They were both guilty. The evidence was overwhelming. The weapon, the blood, the witnesses, the CCTV. After a 20-day trial, the jury took just a few hours to reach unanimous guilty verdicts. Both boys were convicted of murder and possession of a bladed article. They became the youngest convicted murderers in the UK since Robert Thompson and John Venables killed 2-year-old James Bulger in 1993. On September 27, 2024, Mrs. Justice Tipples sentenced both boys to detention at His Majesty's pleasure, the juvenile equivalent of a life sentence.
Shawn came to the UK for treatment for his eyesight and to improve his education. He was adored and loved by his family, and as a young man aged 19, his whole future was ahead of him.
The minimum term, 8 years and 6 months. They could be released at age 20 if deemed safe. The sentence sparked immediate controversy. Shawn's parents, who'd spent their life savings to attend the trial, were devastated. His mother said, "I'm not happy. All the children in the UK will see that they only get 8 years, and they will do the same thing." His father added, "They killed my son like they kill a dog. 15 years would have been better."
A 12-year kid's not supposed to be running around in the night. 12-year kid's supposed to be home, doing their schoolwork.
This world is a different world. Kids are dangerous now. And if we don't pay attention to our kids, it will happen every day.
The murder of Shawn Seesahai exposed multiple failures. How did 12-year-olds get access to a machete? Why wasn't the first boy, a victim of trafficking and exploitation, better protected? How had warning signs been missed? The case became a flashpoint in debates about Britain's knife crime epidemic, with over 50,000 knife offenses recorded annually. Shawn's family faced not just grief, but financial ruin. They'd used their life savings to repatriate his body to Anguilla and took out loans to attend the trial. The boy who'd promised to help them, to shine for them, was gone. Instead of planning his engineering career, they were planning his funeral. The 2 boys remain in youth detention. One shows progress, building trust with staff. The other is assessed as high risk for reoffending. They'll be eligible for parole at 20, still young enough to have full lives ahead of them. Shawn Seesahai will be forever 19, his dreams buried with him in Anguilla's coral soil. This case forces us to confront uncomfortable questions. How do children become capable of such violence? What kind of society produces 12-year-old killers? And how do we stop the next Shawn Seesahai from becoming another statistic in Britain's knife crime crisis? Thank you for watching. Subscribe to Juvenile Files for more documentaries examining youth crime. Remember Shawn Seesahai, not as a victim, but as a young man with dreams who deserved better. If you know someone carrying a knife, speak up. Your voice could save a life.